And good evening and welcome to the January Borough Council meeting. We'll begin this evening with a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance. First, a moment of silence. Given the events of last week, it's clear that the inauguration of a new president and vice president marks a new day for the American people, focused on healing our nation, bringing our country together, and, to borrow a phrase, build back better. It's a spirit of hope and unity. Much of this hope and unity is thanks to the tireless work of our frontline workers who, across various industries, have put their own safety and well-being on the line to ensure that the needs of Americans everywhere are met. They are the real heroes of this moment, and they remind us that America is still a nation of leaders. Please join me in a moment of silence to thank and honor our frontline workers both here and abroad. And now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And moving on with our agenda this evening, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Cramsey?
Here.
Ms. Fulham Winston?
Here.
Mr. Hicks?
Here.
Ms. Landis?
Here.
Mr. Schultz?
Here.
Mayor Scott?
Here.
Mr. Stuvey?
Here.
Ms. Delmain?
Here.
And Mr. Spew?
Here.
All right, thank you very much. We do have a quorum. First up is a presentation from Ms. Tracy Logue-Witter and Mr. Justin Meese from our friends at PPL, and they're going to talk to us about vegetation management. Ms. Witter, Mr. Meese, I'm not sure which one of you would like to go first, but the floor is yours.
Great. Yeah, I'll go first. This is Tracy Witter. Is Justin on the line? I don't see him.
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so thank you all. My name's Tracy Witter. I'm the Regional Affairs Director for PPL Electric Utilities. And I appreciate allowing us to have some time here at the beginning of your agenda to talk about our tree trimming, or we call it a vegetation management program. I guess I'd first like to start by saying that PPL manages 28,000 miles of distribution lines in our 29 county service area. So those are lines that deliver power from local substations to homes and businesses. And as you can imagine, power quality, power reliability is important to us, and we monitor reliability. So as we monitor reliability, we've noticed throughout the years that the #1 cause of power outages is tree-related outages. So trees that fall on the lines, branches that fall on the lines. And as a result, we have an aggressive tree trimming program. When, as you can understand, when trees fall on lines, it can impact thousands of customers who are without power for an extended period of time. So we take this role very seriously at PPL. And on average, every year, we trim lines at 8,000 miles a year. So I can say that our tree trimming process is paying off, because when you compare 2019 to 2020, in 2020, we saw an 11% improvement in our reliability. And when I use the term reliability, I mean the number of times you lose your power and the duration of the outage. So we understand fully that this approach isn't popular, but it's the right thing to do for our customers to provide reliable power. Before we work with an individual property owner, our professional foresters, and Justin is one of them, work with qualified contractors. So they've been pre-vetted, qualified contractors who actually perform the work. So you might see trucks that don't have the PPL logo on them. Those are contractors that we've qualified. Before pruning begins, the foresters and the contractors, they assess the site, they assess the species of the tree, and they also look at the line position and then the last time that trimming occurred. Our contractors prune in a way that encourages healing of the removed branches as well as decreasing decay. Before we work with property owners, we attempt to do a personal visit and explain what's going to be happening by our contractors. If that's not possible, if the resident is not home, we leave a door hanger with some information, contact information, and a brochure, which I am having some brochures mailed to your borough office. So you should receive those soon. And we pledge to strike a careful balance between, individual landowners and at the same time being able to trim the trees properly for reliable service. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you Justin Meese, who's going to go through a little bit more detail about your particular region. He has been a forester for 15 years, and the last 7 years of them at PPL. He has a degree in forestry, and he is a certified arborist. So with that, thank you. Justin?
Thank you, Tracy. So kind of going a little bit more details, and if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Some of the things, just to reiterate what Tracy said, is we do have a contract that comes out. It was Wright Tree Service that was in your region. So they came out to do the work. ECI was actually the ones that came through and planned the work. So we actually have a service come out, plan the work ahead of time, do the notification during that process. Again, we tried to notify door to door, but in the conditions that we're in right now with COVID and everything else, we do want to respect everybody's wishes and try to stay back away from everybody. So unfortunately, if we're doing something that's a little bit more aggressive of removing a tree or anything like that, we do try to make sure we make that face-to-face contact. The trimming, again, was done by Wright Tree Service. That was actually followed up by a certified arborist that works for me, that works directly for me with ECI. So they come out, do the inspection for me, make sure that it was done properly. So part of our program is, and I know everybody absolutely loves seeing our big V outs and everything else, and I understand it's not the most popular thing to see, but unfortunately, that is the way we're trying to get it to, it's the healthiest prune we can do to make sure we try to get to grow away from the lines. And unfortunately, I know it is very, very unsightly looking at it from the side and seeing the big V's going down there, but we're trying to make the least amount of cuts. Now, it does look like we make a lot of cuts because we do get a lot of sucker growth back. We try to make the least amount of cuts so it stresses the tree less than what it has done in the past. So when we used to come through and top those trees out, it would actually defeat the purpose of us trimming it. So it would stress the tree more, and it actually put the growth back on twice as quickly. So when we come through on our maintenance cycle, which is usually every 4 to 5 years, we try to get that growth out of there so it's not going up into those lines. Now, what we do is when we're trimming for these, this is basically, we're trying to trim it so you guys don't see your flickering lights when you go flip your switch on and the wind's blowing a little bit. Those little branches start tickling those lines a little bit. That does cause a problem for us, and you guys do see your ovens and anything else, clocks, anything else reset like that. So we try to make sure that we get those cleaned up before it gets to that point. I know we get very, very close and it's getting close to those lines. So we try to get rid of those momentaries before it starts happening, the occurrence starts too much. Removals are one of our big savers of it. Everybody, or hopefully most of you guys know that we had pretty much a pandemic come through with emerald ash borer. So basically all our ash trees were put into a stress and declined, and we put in a big movement to try to get rid of as many of those as we possibly can that were within a good distance of our line. So we went through and heavily removed those trees. We also go out and just not only, target ash trees, but anything else that may be dead or dying or some type of disease done to it. So we do that pretty much at no cost to the customer, other than you may have some wood that's left at your property for firewood. Like I said, we come through about every 4 to 5 years. Sometimes we can extend it out depending on where it is and you know, if the reliability of the line's pretty good. For me personally, I cover the Harrisburg region. So that covers everything down from the Carlisle, Newville area, all the way over to Hershey, Hummelstown. I go up all the way to the Elizabethville area and cover all the way up to Perry County, up into Juniata County a little bit. So I cover a large region. My main focus is really on the transmission side. There's big towers that supply the power to the substations. But again, I do oversee the distribution program. So if there's any questions or anything that we can help out with, you know, we're here to help out and try to get that taken care of. Excuse me. So open up if there's any questions or if there's anybody that needs anything.
I
Thank
have an
you.
observation, perhaps more than a question.
Yes.
You indicated that you try to do this every 4 to 5 years to do trimming.
Yes.
I've lived in my house for 27 years. The tree across the street from us just got trimmed. And it got a haircut like there is no tomorrow.
Oh, my.
And there is no way. And further down the other direction from where I live, there is no way that those trees were trimmed 4 to 5 years ago.
Okay.
And it looks like hell.
It does. And if I don't know the exact property, if you give me the address, I'd be more than happy to go out and take a look at it and hopefully get
No, I mean, I'm
explanation.
sure they
Yeah.
did. I have no query about the talent of the persons doing the job. It was very clear. They were very careful. They were eyeing it, you know, they were doing everything you would want someone to do. But
Yep.
if you did this more frequently, you wouldn't have the trees looking so terrible.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have had a chance to encompass so much of the line before you got anywhere near them. I think that it's that dramatic haircut that is really irritating people right down to their toes, because there is no, I can swear to you, it is way longer than 5 years. That tree had never been touched.
Okay. And we do, and I'll be honest, we do get refusals. People do say you cannot absolutely touch our trees. And we do take it to every degree we possibly can to make sure we get those trimmed.
Well, this
Some
is
of
pretty
them do
much my
not.
whole neighborhood. So I don't think any of them have been done, certainly in the last 10 years.
Okay.
But I understand your dilemma. I just think figuring out a way to make those trim jobs less dramatic because you're
Okay.
doing them more frequently would be a huge help with your customer relations.
And speaking of customer relations, Stephanie put in the chat a link to the vegetation management brochure for those of you playing along at home. I guess there are phone numbers in there and all sorts of background information on proper tree trimming and also numbers that folks can call if they have concerns, I would imagine. Yes. Okay.
One of the biggest ones, if there is concerns, and I know it is a pain in the backside, but the 1-800-PPL, that is honestly the best one to get a hold of us. There is a trail that gets followed, a cookie crumb trail. So it goes into our customer service, our dispatchers and customer service folks. It will then go into a piece of paper that will come to myself or one of my contract foresters, and we'll come out and take a look at it. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 days. Sometimes it could take us up to 4 or 5 weeks, just depending on the storms that have come through and how busy we are. But we do try to get that within, 2 to 3 week time frame. But again, that is the best one. And again, I know it is a little bit stressful hitting all those numbers and all the buttons, but it is one of the best ways for us to get it. And we have to do a follow-up tracking on it. So we do follow that up on it for anything. So
Just one last comment. The feedback that I've had from constituents who did interact with the folks from, was it Wrights?
yes, it was right tree service.
Not a friendly group. So the fact that your subcontractor could be making you look bad because they are not being courteous to the homeowners.
Okay.
So
And
that's,
I
you
do
don't need
appreciate
that.
Yep, absolutely. I do appreciate that. And that's not the first time I heard that. So I'll just say, unfortunately for Right Tree Service, they're no longer on PPL system right now. So we
That may
did get
well be a
some,
wise decision.
yep. So we did get some feedback like that. And just internally, we did have a little bit of friction between myself, my manager, and some of the management over there, and just couldn't come to terms. So it was a peaceful agreement that we just decided to part ways, and they are no longer on PPL system. So
Mr. Mayor, just a quick comment.
yes.
First of all, I really want to applaud the responsiveness you all had to a couple of down lines, that the trees took down some lines, but it was restored remarkably quickly. And PPL has been really good at getting us back up and running. But to Councillor Fulham-Listen's comment, I mean, of the 28,000 miles of distribution lines, you know, they're probably not all alike. And for our borough, I mean, we have segments of it where, you know, the aesthetics are just, you know, kind of critical to our charm and sort of our allure. And,
Yep.
you know, to the degree we can get into a little bit more frequent cycle, and maybe at least in a subset of areas that, you know, maybe are touching historic districts or more, you know, pedestrian friendly areas. Yeah, we would really petition you to think about that. I just have sort of another question. I don't know if it's even in your radar or whether, you know, PPL sees it at all in their future to put underground lines anywhere in their distribution area in the next decade or two.
The underground is always on the radar. The unfortunate part is the cost that goes along with that is, I believe it is 5 times. Do not quote me on that, but I do know it is a lot higher to do it than it is to put it overhead. Part of that, for me personally, my father's a lineman, so he's been a PPL for 30 some years. So just hearing some of the stories that he goes through, to fix an underground line is very costly, and you're digging up the street, the yards, or anywhere else. If it's overhead like it is, I don't want to say the perk of it is a little bit easier to fix. It's easier to put a pole back in and get the power restored more quicker than it is for the underground. So you got to find out where that underground fault is, and that does sometimes take a lot longer to put those people in service. So like I said, unfortunate part, it is a little bit more expensive, and trust me, I've lived in underground developments. I love the underground part of it because I don't have to worry about anybody coming to me saying, hey, what's going on with those trees and why are you trimming them so badly? But I definitely do get that. I'll just kind of touch on frequency. So we are looking at different aspects of that. So we do have a new program, new software that we're kind of, I'll just say we're the first in the United States to kind of try this. So we went everything's on a computer screen right now. Everything that we're planning, all our work and everything else is digitized right now. So we're trying to find a way to better frequent more areas quicker. So Carlisle is definitely one of those ones. Carlisle, also know up in like Hampton area, Camp Hill area, Harrisburg cities and everything else. When we try to get into those, we do know the frequency is a little bit longer. We're trying to, I'll say, nip that one in the bud. So we do have that on our radar. Unfortunately, right now with us doing that transition, it is taking us a little bit longer than what we anticipated, but we do know. So I usually trim right around 1,000 miles a year for my contractors. And I have 4 contractors on system. I have Asplin, Penn Lines. I just recently acquired Tree Smiths with the exit of Wright, and I also do have Pittman Tree Service. So I do have 4 services working basically 5 days a week, between 8 to 10 hours a day and 52 weeks a year. So we're always going, we're always trimming, and that's about the extent of what we can get done in a year. We also do know some of these areas, like you said, Carlisle, the historic areas, we do know those are a little bit more sensitive. That's something we're trying to work on to make sure that we can focus on some of those areas a little bit more. And then maybe some of our rural areas that are maybe up a little bit more Perry County area, over in the Elizabethville area, some of those areas that are a little bit more reliable and the tree trimming isn't as bad. We do know we're trying to flex that a little bit so it does even out a little bit. So we're there a little bit more frequently and understand that that is an issue that everybody faces, not only here, but we do have that in Allentown, you know, Scranton area, up in Williamsport, and even down Lancaster City. We have a broad area that we do understand that. And that's something that we are definitely working towards, trying to work with all different areas on that aspect of it. Is trying to get there more frequently where we need to get there and address those issues ahead of time.
Yeah, just to your point, Joel, I have sort of a soft spot in my heart for Carlisle because I went to Dickinson back in the early 90s. So I can appreciate you wanting to guard the historic look to the town. You are all very blessed. It's a beautiful town.
Thank you. And just, you know, if you're ever looking at doing some underground, you know, pilot studies, 1-800 Carlisle, give us a call.
Okay.
Thank you, Joel. And Tracy and Justin, thank you so much. Are there any other questions for these two folks before we move on?
Mayor, it's Chief Snyder.
Hi, Chief.
I would like to have one question. It deals with the tree trimming operations within the borough. This past year, we ran into some safety concerns with the lack of traffic management. The firm that previously was trimming trees for them in the borough did not provide the traffic management. And so we had to rely on our volunteer fire police for several hours, 2 times. And so I would ask that they remind those folks to provide the proper traffic management within the streets of the borough.
Absolutely. No, I thank you for that. And yeah, I'm still in contact with Wright, but anywhere, even all the other contracts we do have on system, that is something I will definitely take back to them tomorrow. And then anybody else I can get to tomorrow, we'll definitely get to on Monday. So I do appreciate that.
All right, thank you for that, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none. All right, thank you very much, Justin, Tracy. Thank you so much. And again, if you have any questions or any concerns, our staff is always available to work with you guys. I know we had gotten some calls and some emails about the condition of the trees, and that's why we thought we'd bring you in and let folks hear from you directly. So thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Nope. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, moving on. Next up is citizens to be heard. We have first scheduled Glenn White, Executive Director of the Carlisle Downtown Association, and he's going to talk to us about ICE Art Fest and Love Bucks. Glenn.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much for having me. I'm presuming everyone's able to hear me. Like to thank you, but thanks very much, Espar. Like to thank you all for having me. Beginning of a new year. Of course, we have all new challenges facing us, but I would like to say thank you very, very much to the borough leadership and the college leadership, and pretty much right around Thanksgiving last year, a little bit afterwards, or right around there, wanting to come to us with a general downtown gift certificate. It was very similar to what we had about 10 years ago called the Downtown Dollars. And really wanted this to be a global gift certificate, something that could be used everywhere. We had been talking about this for many, many years prior to trying to get a gift card, but the problem has always been we could never get a gift card that would be of an affordable value for us that we're able to implement across every point of sale system across the actual town. Plus with people that actually don't take cards. We still have a few people like that. So we came up with our Love Bucks program and spent some good time dealing with that and researching that and talking to our lawyers about that, getting the proper insurance to actually roll that out. And we were very happy to be able to get it to look the right way, get it to be insured the right way. And actually in our first week of having them out, we sold over $3,000 worth of those. Since then, we've actually sold another $2,000 of them. The problem is we're needing to get them printed up again. And, we just keep getting calls for people that are wanting to use these. The good thing about these is you're not pigeonholed into one store that you would have to go to actually use these. So we're seeing them coming at us from all kinds of different stores, all kinds of different restaurants. And the interesting thing is we're actually tracking who actually bought them and how long it's taking for them to come back in to us too. So it's a really great way to get more money out into the streets. As we all know, the downtown is hurting. We are hanging on, but a lot of the merchants are dipping into savings, are working with less staff than what they have had in the past. I think some of the good news is we are still currently at about 6.75% vacancy rates, which is a great news considering at most of the times we're at about 13%. And when something does close, we're having some good entrepreneurs talk to us and talk to our staff about coming back into town. So again, the Love Bucks, it's a great way to not only give your staff or give your family and friends that Christmas gift, but what we've heard from towns like Frederick and Easton is their biggest time for these is springtime, when it is the coaches' gifts, the teachers' gifts, the Cub Scout masters' gifts, those kinds of things. So we're expecting to see these pretty much being very impactful year round. There's no expiration date on them, and they will be going on. They'll be going on perpetually now. So we're really happy to have those out on the street. If you haven't seen them yet, I've probably spent like 48 hours making them look like Euros. They're really cool, they're really fun, and the artwork on them is actually going to change after every printing. So we're hoping they become more of like a little bit of a collector item too. So we're gonna celebrate the different icons and history of Carlisle with every printing of these. We had pretty much every single, we have about 99% participation on it from the downtown stores and restaurants. So we are happy to have everyone helping out and actually taking these. Any questions on Love Bucks at this point? We are rolling out with our 5th annual Ice Art Festival too. That's going to be coming up on February 5th, 6th, and 7th. We have 50 ice sculptures sold. We have been working with Susan and the chief on doing a very good COVID related, COVID interested program. All the ice sculptures are going to be spaced as far apart as possible, but still right in front of the actual stores that sponsor them. We're not going to be doing any indoor entertainment or any live sculptures, not allowing people to kind of gather. But we're getting a lot of good feedback from the stores and restaurants and everyone who has actually been really involved with this. Besides the Small Business Saturday, this is the largest shopping weekend for downtown, or the largest foot traffic weekend for downtown. So one of the interesting things, we're actually going to have people sign up for about a 5-hour time slot that they're going to be downtown walking around, trying to do a little bit more COVID contact tracing. So it's going to be something a little bit new. We're all going to kind of work through the new operations, and I think we all have a really good plan for this. The one other thing I wanted to kind of mention there too is we do have a new grant program out. It was Heartbeat of America with the National Main Street Association came out about 6 weeks ago. We actually wrote a letter for Chad Kimmel amongst another 5 downtown stores and restaurants, and Chad was actually awarded this grant, and we're really happy to actually have Chad be a part of that. A new one came out through, you have to be an accredited Main Street organization to actually be involved with these. It'll be a $5,000 to $10,000 grant. It's starting up on January 21st and ending on the 28th. And it's with the Brother Office Supplies Company. And again, I think it's about between a $5,000 and $10,000 grant opportunity that we are going to be working with downtown stores and restaurants, writing them a letter of recommendation. And hopefully they'll be able to be looked favorably amongst the actual Main Street organization and get a grant. I think last time they had about 32 of them across the country that were able to get these Hartford grants. So yeah, we're again trying to keep the ball going here, trying to keep everything rolling from our own programming to get stores and restaurants to remain open, to get the customers back downtown feeling safe, and we're going to keep on doing our job. Is there any questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes, Barb.
Thank you so much, Glenn. I'm curious about what kind of system or timeline you're thinking about when you mentioned that the art on the love bucks would rotate. So when might that open, and where could artists look for that application or something like that?
Wonderful. Actually, the only expense we have with this is the actual printing. We got a UPMC sponsor for this, and they took very great care because this is actually cash. We had to take great care. We have a little treasury kind of thing going on now. We don't make any money on these. It's $1 in, $1 out kind of thing. When a store or a restaurant will get one of these, it will let us know, and we will actually come over and actually pick them. We're at every store or restaurant at least once or twice a week. We'll gather them, but we also have a mailbox right outside of our door. And we'll get them their money back within about 24 to 48 hours. We'll get them a check. We will do it at the next printing, which we actually will print about $5,000 worth of these, and then we will probably change the artwork. It could be everything from an architecture series to a landmark series to a Dickinson College series to a local artist series. So we're going to really look forward to having fun with that kind of thing. And if you guys haven't seen them, just let me know. I can kind of make a photo. I don't want to say make. If I make a photocopy of them, it says void across it. There's special photocopy proof paper. And we actually have special hologram stickers on them too, so they can't be duplicated.
Yeah, Glenn, that'd be great if you could get that to us. Work with staff and get us a copy so we can see what it looks like.
You'll see the actual posters on pretty much a lot of the downtown stores and restaurants on their windows saying that they're taking them. On the point of sale, you'll see that they're actually taking them. That's actually going very, very well.
That's great, Glenn. Do you have off the top of your head just sort of a subtotal of what it's brought in?
What is it brought in terms of?
Oh, just how, in dollar terms, how many love bucks have been purchased?
We have sold $4,700 worth of love bucks.
All right.
And these are again from consumers buying them for gifts for people that then will then turn them around. And again, just like I said, this can be used at any downtown store or restaurant. And actually, the most interesting thing is, I think Michelle's coming on here pretty soon too. I think the county is looking at trying to figure out a way to take this countywide. A lot of other towns are looking for something like this. This seems to be an easy way to actually do this. But again, it's the biggest thing, and that's why we had to worry about the insurance on it. This is cash, and we're kind of worried about mailing these things too. So we have to figure out that whole thing. There's Michelle.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Glenn? I think it's a great program.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, sir.
I'll stick on here with Michelle. But.
All right. And speaking of Michelle Crowley, Ms. Crowley is with the Carlisle Regional Chamber, and she joins us this evening to give an update on some of their initiatives. Michelle, the floor is yours.
Michelle, you need to
you're on
unmute
mute.
yourself.
Where did I see that's one of the most famous phrases from 2020? You have to unmute yourself. Gosh, anyway, and I know most of you want me muted, so I feel flattered you let me unmute myself. What I was saying is, Glenn, I'm not 100% certain they are going to do that, but right now, I think the commissioners just decided that obviously any business development or economic development or community development organization probably across any part of the US is trying to figure out what to do to keep their business community going and be vibrant. We're all devastated. None of us, honestly, it's what keeps us up at night is one of those things that we always say in our office, what's keeping us up at night. And, between the DCA, the chamber, programs like Destination Carlisle did, what Cumberland Area Economic Development is doing, we're all trying to make sure that we keep as many businesses open as possible. We hosted a program with a number of our restaurants and any of the businesses that were impacted by the original shutdown at the very beginning of December. We had a forum. Ashley Goss, that owns Market Cross Pub, is on our board. Ashley led the discussion with me. You know, we partnered, the chamber partnered with PA 30-Day Fund. In fact, Aspar is one of our reviewers. What we did is, most of you are probably familiar with PA 30-Day Fund. It was a group that was started to provide basically a $3,000 grant to an area business, to kind of give them a push start with some capital. We did a local campaign, raised about $43,000 to date. We've put about 30,000 of that out into the, or I'm sorry, 35,000 of that into the community. Aspar, we use Dickinson students well, the state model relies on students from Penn, the University of Pennsylvania, but because we've got such a great relationship with Dickinson, we asked if we could partner with Dickinson and Aspar, and one of her peers, Sam Halpern, and a few other students did an amazing job doing the review. So when my team came together, all they had to do was say, okay, this is great. We'll support that. We'll support what they did. So it's kind of fun seeing Aspar sitting here in the meeting tonight. She's a really sharp young woman and pretty, you know, I on track to kind of help a lot of us going forward. But PA 30 is one program that we did start or we partnered on, and we are trying to raise some additional funds for it. But I know there are a lot of programs that, as I mentioned earlier, are going on, and we put together a list to make it easier for all of you. You know, in fact, I think there's a separate an attorney or a dental group, I'm forgetting what sort of practice, is actually doing a food distribution or a food support program locally. I think it's for beer. I'm not quite sure who they are, but I don't think they're local, but they must be countywide. So we're trying to get a handle on who's doing what to make it easier if you're thinking about making donations, if you're thinking about supporting an entity, or if you've got a favorite organization you've partnered with for years, that may be who you want to support to get the monies out there. The thing I will tell you, all of those organizations, any money that they take in, they are putting back out into the community. Nobody is taking or retaining any money. And to me, I think we should all be pretty proud of that. A couple things I wanted to say before I kind of jumped in. I was just kind of dovetailing on what Glenn said. Mayor Scott, I'm sorry when I saw that you're leaving, you decided you're not going to run for another term, but I'm excited about what the future holds for the council. I want to give my take my hat off to Susan Armstrong. Susan and I have always worked well together through our entire tenure over the last several decades together when she's come and gone. And through everything through the last year, I know we've gotten a lot closer, but one of my favorite things to date, actually, probably my favorite was when Grand Illusion needed help getting, trying to figure out how they could do outdoor seating. And Susan and I were on cell phones with Chad downtown, kind of measuring sidewalks. It's probably my favorite. But the snow removal effort that you went through was, to get that done and to help businesses get reopened in a timely fashion most municipalities did not do that. So all of you deserve, I think, a round of applause and thanks for taking such concern and care and support of your local business community. Glenn mentioned the Main Street program. Yeah, I think he wrote a bunch of letters. I wrote a bunch of letters. Chad's grant was a $15,000 grant. I think probably or most of you are aware that another round of PPP funding is coming out. It was supposed to come out through local financial or through financial institutions starting today. I think the application process now got pushed to tomorrow. So if you know of a business that has applied for PPP in the first round, or if they did apply in the second round, what we went through in the spring, everyone was scrambling to get every sort of funding possible. I think what's happened in this case between the CPA firms and our financial institutions, if they had an applicant in the past, they've gone to those companies and said, okay, we want to give you the opportunity to reapply again. Are you interested? I know personally, my past board chair works with Members First. He already submitted 200 applications this week. So the chamber probably hosted, Susan may remember, probably 20, 30 programs in regard to funding over the spring, the first quarter or second quarter of this year. We had probably on the first few calls, we had 150 plus on each call. We have calls scheduled for this coming Tuesday, next Thursday. I know Orstown Bank, who we partnered with, they have a program tomorrow. They have fewer than 20 businesses on each call. So I think a lot of people are more comfortable with the application process. I think I'm not looking as a lack of communication. I'm looking as a lack of great communication that people seem to be moving ahead and finding the financial resources and how to gain access to those monies. But I would ask you as a favor, if you are hearing of someone that may not have applied, we've got a great business downtown that she applied for funding and got turned down. And, I would just love to have her come back. We tried to encourage her to apply to our PA 30-day fund, and she wouldn't do it. So, I think people are afraid sometimes that they get rejected. I said, we discovered one thing. When the PA Cares funding began at the end of June with the Commonwealth, they had, what was it, 225 million that they were trying to get out. A lot of the women-owned businesses that applied, a lot of our women-owned businesses are still 50-50 with their spouse or their partner. And Create-A-Palooza downtown, I'm certain I don't mind sharing this with you, that Griffiths would be fine. When I talked to Karen, they were very disgruntled that they couldn't get funding. When I talked to them, they were 50-50. Now they've adjusted their business plan and Karen is the majority owner. So I think there are I hate to say simple things like that, but they're the kind of things we need to find out. And I know you as council members, Susan's probably got one of the strongest leadership teams I've seen in a while. And Mayor Scott will tell you, I've been around a while. So I know you're out and about, talk to your friends. I think, Sean, a year ago, we were at the Hamilton with the governor celebrating Tommy's birthday. So if you go and talk to Tommy, I'm certain he probably didn't apply for PPP funding. So we need to get these people to realize they're entitled to the revenue, and it's an opportunity to get the monies to them. Lastly, one of the things I did want to ask you about, and it's something we're going to be working on a lot over the next couple of months, we are going to need the borough support, and I know Susan is going to be working with me on this, but trying to find locations for people to get their vaccines administered to them once we are able to move ahead and more vaccines are coming into our community. Some of you are on the Carlisle Community Action Network call with Dickinson this morning, and I've heard that that's one of our push programs. Carlisle Events is willing to work with us. The fairgrounds to me is a really logical location. I know Susan and I both worked together with them in the spring to see how they could host car show events. And I think we're getting closer to seeing if we could make that a reality. But we probably need to have 3 or 4 or 5 other locations around town just to make things go smoothly. And we're kind of working on that. And hopefully there will be others in the county. But I would ask for your help and support on that. And we also are going to need a lot of volunteers. And there's an outstanding network within the state. And Susan, I don't know if you have that. I can make sure I get that to you. Actually, I think you probably do in the CAN information. It's via Serve PA. But Carlisle is really fortunate that we have Kiwanians, Rotarians, Seroptimists. We have a lot of real Lions, trying to think of all the other groups. So many of those people will volunteer. We want to run them through the Serve PA program so the county has a log of who's who. We're going to need probably volunteer support. And I thought Chief Landis was on. He could probably tell you better. But we're probably going to need traffic control to doing so many other things. I don't think the county really knows exactly what they're going to need from a volunteer perspective yet, but we're going to need a lot of help. And quite frankly, I want to be able to be in Borough Hall with you soon. And the sooner we all get the vaccine, it's going to make that a reality. So, or vaccines, I should say. So with that, thank you. Thank you for all the hard work you're doing. And thank you for being a good council. I don't say that lightly. I don't say that to every group. So thank you. I appreciate the time.
Michelle?
Yeah, Deb.
How about the old Sprint building?
Actually, the old Sprint building, I believe, was just purchased. We had, that's located in South Middleton Township. So in the spring.
Big parking lot.
I know, and we've also considered the Carlisle Livestock Market, which just sold to Amazon. Amazon's going to use it for parking. That's an idea, and I think we're gonna pursue that because there was a lot of parking there, and it's close to UPMC, and it's close to Quality Care, and so you'd have refrigeration possibilities. Yeah, it's a good idea. Thank you for that.
All right, any questions from Michelle? That was a great update. Thank you so much. We always appreciate seeing you, and come back again.
Hang in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will. We'll be together soon.
Yes, we will. All right, I believe we have a visitor in Borough Hall. Is Ms. Hamill, would you like to address council at this
Yep,
time?
just headed up to the mic right now.
All right. And Ms. Hamill, we'll need your name and your address for the record.
Good evening. Happy New Year's, guys.
Thank you.
I just wrote something up with concern about sincerity with everything that happened recently that I feel maybe everybody should hear. With the event of social justice and civil rights issues, I'm asking everyone to have like a self-reflection time within yourself. With many of the elected positions in the borough, the county, the state, and the country that are opening, I just want to express the importance of the sincerity in all that you're speaking of what you want to do and that you want done. To like question yourself if your interest in social justice or any other issues is for clout, self-gain, or a stepping stone used for your political gain. Because now more than ever is not the time for self-image, but rather a time for sincerity and putting our words into action. Now is the time to become involved with sincerity in our communities. What as community leaders and elected have you or myself showed to community with sincerity to gain their trust that we are sincere of how we feel? What pathways are being made to make Carlisle and Cumberland County the example? As I've said before, it is way above par to other areas that I have gone to. And I just want to quote John F. Kennedy as I say, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, and say, we can do this for our county. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Hamill. I believe that's it for our scheduled and unscheduled speakers. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda is a list of routine items which do not appear to be controversial in nature and which probably do not require additional discussion. They can be acted on by one motion in their current form. If discussion is desired on any particular item, any member of council or the public may request the item be removed from the consent agenda, and that item will be considered separately. For council, is there any item on the consent agenda that you would like to see removed? And I don't see any heads saying yes, so I'll ask for anyone in the audience, if there's an item on the consent agenda that you would like to see removed, please let me know. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right, motion has been made to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. I believe that was Ms. Landis, or maybe it was Ms. Fulham Winston. I'm not really sure, but I'm sure Joyce will figure that out. All right, any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. All right. And that takes care of items, all the items on pages 1 and 2. And we'll now move on to the regular agenda, which starts on page 3. There are no tabled, continuing, or recurring items. So we'll move into reports from elected officials, and under Mayor's report, I'll make a motion and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Crampsey first for background and discussion. I move that council approve a resolution that supports allowing for municipalities throughout Pennsylvania to enact their own minimum wage legislation. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by Mr. Crampsey, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. And I won't take up too much time tonight, but I thank you for bringing up this resolution. This is something that I think municipalities across Pennsylvania are having conversations about. Typically we as a council, I think there's a couple issues that come to the top of my mind when we think about things that we kind of wish and hope that Harrisburg or the state legislature will do, and we wait long times for them to do it. So this resolution quite simply would encourage the General Assembly to pass a very simple piece of legislation that says local governments would be able to set their own minimum wage. Right now, our state's minimum wage is at the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25 an hour. And I think that creates a lot of issues and a lot of issues that we hear about here locally, whether it's affordable housing, healthcare, or things that our residents need and require. And if they're working 1 or 2 minimum wage jobs, a lot of times it's not enough to find affordable housing in the borough or to be able to meet those basic necessities. So this resolution, again, would ask Harrisburg to say, let the local level and the folks that are closest to their constituents, which is the 7 of us, decide that issue. Let us explore that issue. We just heard from Michelle and Glenn, who do great work and coordinate with a lot of great stakeholders. Allow us to explore locally if that's something where we meet with the chamber and DCA and they say, our businesses think this is a fair minimum wage. They don't think this is a fair minimum wage. I think those are conversations locally that we should be able to have. And unfortunately, right now, with preemption, we are not allowed to do that. So I'm hopeful that my colleagues will support me in voting for this resolution. And then hopefully Harrisburg passes a bill where we can have a discussion on what a proper wage is for our community.
Thank you, Sean. Any further comments from council members?
Just while you were speaking, Sean, I looked up because I didn't know. When was the last time the federal minimum wage was increased? That was in 2009. Prices have changed. Life is more expensive now than it was in 2009. And the fact that it hasn't been increased has put many, many, many people in a bind because they can't keep up. And we're ruining lives left and right by not addressing this issue. So I think it's a grand idea.
Yep. And I'll just add to that, Deb. If you look as of today, every state that touches Pennsylvania has a higher minimum wage than $7.25. So it also becomes a competitive issue. If someone could live in Carlisle and make more in Maryland, are they going to leave our community and drive to Maryland to work there, pay tax, pay their business taxes down there? So I think Deb's point is spot on. It's been way too long. And we can argue about what we think the number is, but I think for me, I think 725 is way too low.
And I'll
Thank
just make an additional comment that, when they take the powers away from the local government to be able to even, discuss this type of work, it really limits what we can do to make sure that our constituents are in the best possible situation. And it's also been proven that as, municipalities and then states and everything, start to enact these types of progressive changes, that then it does flip at the federal level. I mean, we've seen it with gay marriage and some other things that started small and sequential, and then it becomes like the law of the land. So just allowing this to be a start of a conversation, I think is extremely important, and any power that, or any way that we can make our voice heard to the work being done in Harrisburg, I think it's important for us to do at this point. So thank you, Sean, for bringing that along.
Thank you, Brenda, for those comments. Anything further from council? All right. I believe we have an individual who would like to comment on this in the audience, Connie Byers.
He's making our way to the microphone.
All right. Former council member Connie Byers, I should say. Welcome back.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
I had a couple questions, and the presentation raised a separate one. I was wondering what the source of this resolution is. Where did this resolution come from? I'm just curious.
Oh, so the resolution is similar to what I think other municipalities have started to either pass or consider. So it's a template of what we're seeing other local governments talk about around the minimum wage.
The questions I had, I was just curious. It sounds like you're waiting to secure the resolution before you look into whether it's something that is needed in this town. But I was curious to know if you had canvassed any of the residents or the employers or the employees in town to find out what they feel about this in general, and if you might consider doing such a thing, canvassing and coming up with just some data to say, well, this is something that Carlisle wants to pursue or not.
Yep. So Connie, that's a great point. That was my intent with this resolution is if something were to happen in Harrisburg, that could start a process for us here locally to start that canvas. So we could, meet with local businesses and employees and, maybe the data comes back, hey, everybody's already at, $9. That's kind of the floor within our borough. No one's paying $7.25 anymore. That would be information that we could then use. The frustration for me is I don't think it's worth starting that work if we don't have that power. That would be us, spinning our wheels and going down a path where, we might be giving folks false hope that we could act when we don't have the legal authority to act.
I guess it just seems to me that you're acting, I'm just wondering who you're representing. Who are you representing? Are you representing the residents then in doing this? Are you representing the employers? Are you representing the employees? Or are you representing yourselves?
So I mean, I'll just speak for myself. I mean, it's a representation of kind of what our local government is set up to do. I think back to a few years ago when the local community passed home rule charter, right? That was a local decision where folks said they wanted a different form of government. This is the same type of thing. It's not, there's no special interest. It's we don't have the power to do something. I'm an advocate for local control, which we don't have on this issue. So it's asking Harrisburg to give us that local control to explore it.
Has it been asked for before? Has the state government been asked to give local control, to give the local governments control on this issue before? Is this the first time that this effort is being made?
I don't believe so. I mean, in my time on council, I think this is the first time we would do a resolution on it, but I think there's always conversations on a variety of issues where local governments ask Harrisburg if they can have the local control over an issue instead of it being dictated by the state.
And this happens frequently through our local government associations, Connie, the Pennsylvania Municipal League, Pennsylvania Boroughs Association, Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, all have adopted resolutions asking for this type of power in one way or another. But we frequently lobby Harrisburg for local control, specifically for our area to decide our own destiny.
Okay, so if you get the I mean, I just am puzzled about the order of events. It just seems to me that there should be some kind of direction from the borough, from the residents and the people in the town of the borough to give momentum to this. But that's, I guess, just my opinion. And I do appreciate your answers and thank you.
No, thank you, Connie. I think those are great questions. And that's kind of the point of this, right, is to have a discussion. And then hopefully, I think Tammy Gitt is on the call as folks, see this discussion we're having, then if they would like to reach out to their elected officials and say, hey, I support this effort, or hey, I don't, then that would kind of move that forward, which I think is one of the great things we get to do here locally is, advocate for things. And if folks disagree, that's fine too.
Thanks very much. Good night.
All right, thank you, Connie. I believe there's no other individuals that are seeking recognition, so I will go ahead and call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. And that ends my report. We now go to reports from committee, community planning and smart growth. Mr. Cramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So back to me. I have 5 items tonight. We'll vote on them individually, but they're all under item 1. It's the Long and CHW final subdivision plan. This is something that we talked about at a previous workshop, and then again at our most recent workshop regarding this subdivision plan. I do want to thank the neighbors as well as the developer for a productive conversation that we had last week at a workshop meeting. So item A, I'm going to make a motion that Borough Council may approve a waiver for the submission of a preliminary subdivision plan for Long and CHW 226-19.
Mr. Crampsey makes a motion to approve a waiver for a submission of a preliminary subdivision plan. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next, I'll make a motion that Borough Council may approve a modification for the provision of a suitable escrow, letter of credit, or other security prior to the plan recordation 226-21-C-P. This requirement will be satisfied at the time of building permit submission.
Mr. Crampsey makes a motion to modify a suitable escrow. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
just
sir.
before we start getting into these modifications, I know there have been some discussions among staff, and actually I had a call with one of the neighbors a few days ago, and some discussions with the applicant. So we might want to give an opportunity for, I think, I'm trying to see if Justin, yeah, I see Justin.
Yep,
Oh, he has his hand up. So there you go. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Justin, you just joined as a panelist, so you can unmute your mic whenever you want to talk.
And Justin, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. And thank you to council for giving me the opportunity to say a few words. We had a productive workshop meeting last week, got to hear a lot of great comments from neighbors and so forth. And after discussions with some council people, staff, and my client, we've added several notes to our plan to kind of cover some of the concerns that were brought up. So my client has voluntarily added these, and I'm going to read them off, and maybe they'll answer some questions that were about to come up during that discussion time. So the first note says, contractor shall take care during rock removal operations to follow industry standards, and when warranted, perform any pre-blast surveys followed by post-blast surveys in accordance with state and federal rules and guidelines. That's in response to some concerns about rock removal and blasting. The next note is, all stormwater operation and maintenance agreements must be submitted to and approved by the borough prior to obtaining a building permit. That takes care of the stormwater maintenance agreement that we're asking for a deferral on. Following that is in conjunction with the waiver that you were just about to take up, we added the note that an improvement security must be posted with the borough and a developer's agreement entered into with the borough prior to obtaining a building permit. Seems very reasonable. It's what we intended to do, and now it's memorialized on the plan. And then the last note we added was, there may be areas on the lot containing rock that may impact utility placement, proposed stormwater facilities to be constructed, and building locations, and there have been no subsurface investigations done as a condition of approval of the plan that created the lot. And that's consistent with what we had represented about not performing subsurface investigations. And so we wanted to put that out there, let everybody know that we heard, we listened, and we wanted to make sure that that was put on there. Attorney Shearer is also on the line, and if there are questions that I can't answer, he certainly may be able to. So thank you.
Thank you, Justin. I believe we have some neighbors, at least in the Zoom. I wonder if any of those folks would like to say a few words about these conditions that'll be noted on the plan. Going once.
We do have a couple hands raised, so we'll start with Cecile. And go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, I guess just to, again, because I'm not so familiar with the language used in development, just to have a little more clarity regarding the areas on the lot that have yet to be discovered regarding limestone and possible channels of water. As to the meaning of that last note.
So the meaning of the note is alerting a future developer that they would encounter rock on the site, limestone rock. But there are no channels or water courses on site.
Right, that are known of.
Yes.
I think that's good that you did that.
Okay.
We have one more.
Okay.
Mr. Dutry, if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, this is John Dutry. I'd just like to thank Mr. Garrity and his team for acquiring this lot and dividing it responsibly, and thank him because I know that he will do the responsible thing, and anything that has to be done, I'm real comfortable with him, and we are happy that he is going to do what he's going to do. That's all.
All right. Is there anyone else that seeks recognition on this item?
I think I'll just make one short comment, just because I think sometimes it's hard for folks when they come up and talk to us to understand that we are listening. I know that, we aren't in all the meetings, but I've worked with development across, in my neighborhood, and worked with a lot of my neighbors. And I think the key that what these neighbors have asked for have been just knowing that what the development is going to be good for their community. And so it's not, I think that that's the same thing. I mean, there were definitely a couple voices in my neighborhood that just didn't want anything. But my thought was to just talk about, like, well, what is really good? What does something really good look like in our neighborhood, and try to frame the conversation differently. And I think it's, although it is stressful, for all the parties to have these conversations, I think it's also very healthy to have everyone at the table and have the discussions. So I'm hoping that this process has come out to something that everyone can feel pretty confident that we're all taking your best interest, both residents and as well as the developer, because that is something that happens in the borough. But we are accessible people, and we do listen to you. So when we quietly just observe, we are listening and we are taking it all in. So I appreciate all the time that staff and developer and FSA and residents have put into this process. So I just wanted to make that comment. So thank you.
And we've been in discussions with staff about our ordinance, and staff is diligently working on some modifications that would allow for more transparency and notification. The thing that we ran up against was that when a plan goes for the planning commission as opposed to zoning hearing board, there is no notification requirement. And I believe that may be a state thing, but I know that we're looking to do some extra things to ensure this does not happen again. So rest assured, as Brenda said, we do hear you. Is anything further from anyone on this? All right, you guys got to help me out. I believe we're on item 1B. Correct. And I believe we had a motion and a second. And I think now it's time to take the vote, right, on 1B? Mm-hmm. All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Great, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for that catch, and for the neighbors and for Justin. It's good that the process, I think, has worked out this way, and I think we're learning for future processes. So with that, I'll make a motion that Borough Council may approve a modification for the provision of an engineer's construction cost estimate for the full material and installation cost for all proposed improvements 226-21 HI. This requirement will be satisfied at the time of building permit submission.
Mr. Crampsey makes a motion to modify an engineer's construction cost estimate. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
All right. I will make a motion that Borough Council may approve a modification for the provision of a stormwater operations and maintenance agreement. This requirement will be satisfied through the preparation of an initial abbreviated agreement and a detailed agreement for individual lots at the time of building permit submission, 217-17E.15 and 25C26.
Thank you. Mr. Crampsey makes a motion to modify provisions of a stormwater operations maintenance agreement. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
And finally, I'll make a motion that Borough Council may approve a final subdivision plan for Long and CHW prepared by FSA Associates, Inc., dated September 1st, 2020, as revised on December 18th, 2020, subject to the applicant's acceptance and satisfactory resolution of the conditions imposed by staff.
Mr. Crampsey makes a motion to approve a final subdivision plan. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
That ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Economic
Thank you very much.
development. Thank you, Justin.
Thanks,
Have a good
Justin.
night. And economic development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one item for this evening for us to consider. I move that Borough Council may direct the Borough Solicitor to draft and advertise an ordinance approving an agreement between the Redevelopment Authority of Cumberland County and the Borough of Carlisle to include, but not limited to, the continuance of leasing of office space, parking, and basic services in Borough Hall. Agreement will be retroactive January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021.
Thank you. Mr. Hicks makes a motion to direct the solicitor to draft and advertise an ordinance approving an agreement between the Borough of Carlisle and the Redevelopment Authority of Cumberland County. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on this item? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. ERCP.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one item this evening. I move that Borough Council appoint Mr. Jacob Krieger to a partial term on the Carlisle Borough Planning Commission. This term will become effective immediately and shall expire on February 28th, 2028.
Mr. Stubbe makes a motion to appoint Mr. Krieger to the Carlisle Borough Planning Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Is Mr. Krieger here? Not a requirement, but
I do have one.
sometimes.
Mr. Mayor, can we
Yeah.
double check to see if 2023 is a leap year?
It might be.
We might want to check and see if that should be February 29th. I don't know.
Okay. All right. We'll do that, and we'll clean it up later in post-production. Do we know? Can anyone check real quick? Everyone look at their phone.
It is
don't-
not a leap year.
It's
Mr.
not.
It is not. All right. So it would be February 28th. All right. That all said, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and motion carries. And we're done, right, Jeff? Yes.
Sorry, yes, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you. All right, public safety. I move that council consider a special event request by the Downtown Carlisle Association to utilize 3 parking meters at the corner of South Hanover and West Church Street, 1 parking meter at 105 North Hanover Street, and lift the sidewalk ordinance for the purposes of holding the annual Ice Art Fest scheduled for February 5th through the 7th, 2021. Approval shall be contingent upon the following. The DCA's COVID-19 plan shall be consistent with Governor Wolf and the Pennsylvania Department of Health's orders regarding gathering limitations, social distancing, and any and all other relevant precautionary measures that may be in place at the time of said event. Said plan shall be reviewed and approved by the Carlisle Borough Emergency Management Coordinator and the Borough Manager. Second, submission of a valid certificate of liability insurance form naming the Borough of Carlisle as an additional insured. And finally, the Borough reserves the right to revoke its approval if deemed to be in the interest of the health of the community or participants and/or future COVID-19 directives requiring such action. I so move.
I second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Glenn White gave us a really good overview of this event, and I think we should support it. All right, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. And now I move that council recommend to Cumberland County Department of Public Safety the appointment of Joseph Grimes and Brian Hamilton as Carlisle's Municipal Deputy Emergency Management Coordinators, or EMC.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion or comment on this from council? These are two very qualified individuals.
Mayor Scott,
Yes.
I would just like to add, throughout the pandemic, one of the topics that Chief Snyder and I talked about was the necessity to have a backup plan, a deputy emergency management coordinator in place. It's common to do so. We have two very qualified individuals that have stepped up and willing to assist anytime that Chief Snyder is indisposed. So I applaud them that they're willing to do so. And I don't know if Chief Snyder would like to provide any additional background on their credentials, but as we know, they've been involved with the volunteer fire department for years and have extensive experience with emergency management.
Mayor, this is Chief Snyder. They both serve currently on the emergency operation plan under the operations section, being members of the fire department. They both meet the training requirements established by the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, and they both understand the borough structure and the borough government. Thank you.
Yeah, two very qualified, highly trained individuals. So we couldn't ask for anybody better. Any further comments? All right, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it and motion carries. That ends my report and Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two items for tonight. The first, I would ask council to consider adopting an ordinance prohibiting the use of engine brake retarding devices on Spring Garden Street within the borough of Carlisle.
Ms. Fulham-Winston makes a motion to adopt an ordinance banning the use of engine brake retarding devices. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This will be a roll call vote. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Cramsey,
Aye.
Ms. Fulham-Winston,
Aye.
Mr. Hicks,
Aye.
Ms. Landis,
Aye.
Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mayor Scott,
Aye.
and Mr. Stubbe.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And my second item, I'd ask Borough Council to approve an agreement amendment to the engineering services contract with Michael Baker International Incorporated, adjusting the scope to include environmental clearance for federally funded projects and associated design adjustments needed for the Carlisle Connectivity Project, increasing the contract by the amount not to exceed $135,692, subject to the approval of the agreement by the Borough Solicitor.
Ms. Fulham-Winston makes a motion to approve an amendment to an engineering services contract. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
And that completes my report.
Thank you. Moving on to new business, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to address Borough Council on a matter relevant to borough government?
There is not, at least in town hall.
Okay, and I don't believe we're not seeing anybody raise their hand in the chat. Okay, all right, moving on to reports from council members. And I usually like to go and look at my little Brady Bunch squares here. Let's see what we got. All right, Mr. Spear, let's start with you.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of quick updates. In addition to the statements from Borough Council last week at the workshop, the law school has put out a statement as well about the events that happened in Washington, D.C. In addition to that, another happy story for all of you is that 156 other law schools also put out similar statements, and we joined one of them as well. So this is something that the legal community has looked at and come to the same conclusion about. So that's heartening for the future of our nation and for the future of our democracy. Just a little update then for Dickinson Law. We are beginning classes next Tuesday after MLK Day. We will not be in person, however. We won't be returning to in-person courses until February 12th. So many of our students will either be staying at home or getting tested and coming back to Carlisle. So hopefully we will have students back in person in Carlisle mid-February. And that's all I have for you.
All right, thank you very much. Deb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a very short comment. After our meeting last week, our congressional representative stood up in Congress and again objected to the election results. And I find his behavior execrable and indefensible and contrary to the goals of a republic in which we live. And I hope he will amend his ways. I don't have any particular confidence that he will, but he should know that at least some of his constituents really find his behavior to be completely indefensible and destructive of democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Sean Cramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly tonight, we talked a lot last week at the Borough Workshop about, the negative and kind of dark events that had happened, but I'm hopeful in this new year in 2021 that things will be much brighter within the borough. We are blessed to have an amazing borough manager, borough staff, fire chief, police chief. We are really a lucky community to have the folks working day in and day out that we do have. We have a lot of tough issues that we're going to have to navigate this year that are going to require a lot of coordination, a lot of help. We heard about some of those earlier tonight with supporting our small businesses, vaccine rollouts. I know Espoir is doing public art work. So a lot of good work that's being done. We just need a lot of coordination and community help. So I would encourage the community and our residents to stay active, stay engaged, be on the lookout, whether it's the work that Stephanie does on social media or our Borough Gazette or in the newspaper. Just pay attention because there's going to be a lot of information coming out this year, and we're going to need the community engaged in all of those efforts. Thanks.
Thank you. Brenda.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. And thanks, Councilor Cramsey, for trying to bring a positive light, but I'm gonna bring it down for just a minute. And I usually wouldn't do this, but so in our CAN calls, the Carlisle Action Network, Community Action Network, we had a big push to get people masked, and this is a continual thing, and we still have this virus, and there's so many people that still just don't believe it, and our leaders politicize something like this. And I've had family who's been sick, but no one like close, and so for the first time I know someone who died from it, and it's really humbling to think that people can continue to belittle others for something like this, for just trying to keep people alive. Like I said, I know lots of people who got better. And then I know my friend Mint. And my friend Mint, I've worked with him at Dickinson since I started there in 2003. And I'm not going to read you his whole obituary, but he's a real person. And I'm going to read you part of who this person is, because I want people to realize that these are real people who have families. So I'm just going to read a little bit of what was sent out to folks at Dickinson. Min was born January 1st, 1963 in Vietnam. He attended the University of Minnesota for a while for computer science. He earned an associate's in science degree in electronic engineering from Northwestern Electric Institute in 1987. And he had a couple of different jobs. I won't go through all of them, working in computers. And then in 1998, he was hired by Dickinson as a computer technician, and he specialized in hardware and software. And coupled with his background in electronic engineering and network applications, Min quickly became a very important and helpful resource to the campus community. He and his department partners could be seen across campus, ensuring efficient deployment of computer technology and allowing us all to perform our jobs most effectively. Min will be long remembered by his colleagues and friends for his dedication to his work, as well as his compassion, thoughtfulness, and endlessly giving spirit. He was a talented photographer and possessed a great sense of humor. Min's user services colleague and close friend Troy shared that while he was a private person, Min's deep love for his wife and son was evident to all who knew him. As we learned from Min's son, Andrew, his father considered his colleagues, his user service as his family. So there is a service tomorrow that I'm not able to make, but there's a good person who made this country his home, even though that's not where he was born. And he became a part of our family. And maybe all of you that's listening or whatever don't have someone that you've lost. And I really hope you don't. And I want you to wear a mask. And I want the people that aren't wearing them and the ones that are pushing to make it a political issue to just think that it's just a human that you're saving. So I'm sorry I brought it down, but I wanted everyone to know just a little bit about my friend Mint. Thanks.
Thank you, Brenda. It cannot be emphasized enough that every COVID death, everyone has a family, they have friends, they have coworkers, there are neighbors. And that can't be emphasized enough, so thank you very much. Mr. Solicitor.
I have no report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Hicks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to update the community and staff and council that I'm going to be following up. It'll be more of a one-on-one on the 28th of January with our sister city, Carlisle. They have designated their economic portfolio manager to be working to collaborate with us, and we're going to try to develop some objectives for the 4 subgroups that we decided to formulate when we met as a joint council a couple months ago. And as a reminder, that involved transportation, economic growth, energy, and community engagement. So I look forward to working with not just the Climate Action Committee, but across the wider community here to get business, residents, and everyone who has both an interest in these issues, but also wants to collaborate to get engaged with one of these 4 subgroups. So I look forward to reporting out on that a little bit more in February.
Thank you. And we have to, and I do like those titles, the portfolio manager. We got to do something about our titles and change them to reflect that, because I like that.
I'm with you on that. And that's all I have this evening. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Joel. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, one thing, Mr. Mayor, on Saturday at 10 a.m., of course, all of council knows we have, I think we're closing in on about 100 attendees. We will be having our first town hall on racial equity. We will have a facilitator with us, the Secretary of Board of Pardons, Brandon Flood. It's been a long time coming, just over the last many months, trying to get all the pieces together. It didn't turn out quite the way we hoped. We hoped by now we'd all be able to be in person. But as Councilor Landis touched on earlier, so personally, we didn't want to create an event that would cause more harm to folks in our community. So we're encouraging everybody to attend virtually. There will be very limited attendance in person at Borough Hall. The goal of the town hall, for those who haven't seen yet, is really for all of us on council to sit back and listen to our community. We do a lot of talking as elected officials. We need to do a lot of listening. So I hope we all take this as an opportunity, listen to our community, and then to jump off of what Ms. Hamill said earlier today, in after listening, being prepared to take some action to make a difference in people's lives. So I hope this will be a first step for us. I know there are a number of organizations in the borough who are making or preparing to make efforts in racial equity, and I think we'll have a lot of partners on board to push our borough forward and make it more inclusive and equitable for all those who have suffered from really centuries of oppression. So I hope you all join us. If anybody out there is listening, you can go to the borough website, carlislepa.org, find information on it. You'll email Assistant Borough Manager Owen Snyder for a Zoom link. And if you don't want to attend in that way and just want to sit back and listen, it will be live streamed to Facebook. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, and to echo the thoughts of Ms. Wanda, it is definitely a long time coming, and I'm looking forward to listening and learning about other people's experiences in the borough. Mr. Stubbe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing this evening.
Borough Manager Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. I'd just like to touch base with everyone. And first of all, thank you again for all of your support through fiscal year 2020. And as we move forward into 2021, we're looking forward to working with everyone and, face the challenges that we know of, but those yet to that were yet to be discovered. We have started at the staff level. Of course, we have housekeeping items, end of year processes, etc. Finance department's extremely busy, working with Public Works and the Director of Public Works and Water Resources, Mark Malerich, going through the list of 2021 projects and prioritizing those. You'll see a lot of those coming forward in reports as well as agenda items in the upcoming months. And again, the departments are very busy right now, but we stand ready to assist and help advance the objectives that each and every one of you have set for our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Espoir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple updates with the projects that I'm working on right now. The public and civic arts conversations are continuing. We had a wonderful meeting yesterday, and we're slowly getting to the ideation phase and kind of coming up with a project to rally around and bring folks together in order to use the arts as a way to bring joy and creativity and community building into our spaces in Carlisle. And the other project that I've started working on is in the beginning stages of creating a land acknowledgement resolution that hopefully we can talk about at the next Borough workshop next month. Land acknowledgements are a way to address the violence that resulted in settlers occupying unceded Indigenous territory. And in Carlisle, it would help to honor the stolen land that Carlisle rests on and the Indian Industrial School that greatly defines Carlisle's role in settler colonialism and has innumerable effects to this day on Indigenous communities. I've reached out to folks over at the Historical Society, as well as U.S. Army War College Commandant, and our nearby neighboring townships, North Middleton and Middlesex Township, as well as the Haudenosaunee Nation, the Eastern Delaware Nations, the Delaware Tribe, and the Onondaga Nations, in order to reach out to Indigenous people who have lived on in the past the land that Carlisle sits on, and centering their voices and their experiences in creating something concise and short that could fit into our meeting structure in order to acknowledge this important history, as the borough has already shown that it did with the apologies on structural racism that happened earlier last fall. This would be a great next step. And updates on the Dickinson side, thank you so much to Councilmember Landis, who brought up the passing of Min at Dickinson. We're all mourning that and really celebrating all that he brought to our community. The Dickinson administration also pushed back the move-in time, so students will be arriving the week of the 20th, as well as now the week of February 8th. So it'll be a little more spread out. There won't be as many students all coming into town at once. Classes are starting January 25th. And there's going to be testing before students arrive to Carlisle, and then once students arrive, as well as the twice-a-week testing that I'd mentioned before. So Dickinson is working really hard to make sure that students are safe and healthy and bringing all that they do to our community. And Margie also published some comments, President Ensign, on the events in DC last week, and definitely admonishes the acts that happened, and looking forward to working together to maintain our democracy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Espoir. Fire Chief Snyder.
Good evening, Mayor. No additional comments.
Thank you, sir. Police Chief Landis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Nothing additional.
Thank you, sir. Parks and Recreation, Andrea.
Good evening. I do not have anything either.
All right, very good. Public Information, Stephanie.
I have nothing tonight.
All right, thank you very much. Assistant Borough Manager Snyder.
I do not have anything this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Community Development, Mike Skelly.
Thank you. I have nothing to share tonight, and have a good evening.
All right, thank you, sir. Public Works, Mark Malarick.
Good evening, Mayor Scott. I have nothing further for Borough Council this evening.
Thank you, sir. And finally, Finance, Richard Jude.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I have nothing to add tonight.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. This concludes our meeting. We are adjourned.